Hey, what is up, guys? Josh back here again with you today for another one, and this one that I have here today is another whiskey review. I got 50 milliliter of a whiskey that is not necessarily a bourbon this time, but it is Crown Royal's Black, or Crown Royal Black, blended Canadian whiskey, like Crown Royal, which is just a plain Canadian whiskey, nothing like a bourbon or anything like that. Crown Royal Black is basically their Crown Royal blended whiskey, matured in charred oak barrels this time to kind of give it a bit more of a deeper kind of bourbon flavor to it, which Crown Royal definitely is not. So it kind of just it gives it sort of a deeper quality. It's a higher alcohol content. It is 90 proof, 45% alcohol by volume, so almost 50% alcohol. So it's got more of a bite to it. It has more of a richness to it. As you can tell, the color is a bit darker as well as compared to other kind of the Crown Royal whiskey, which is a very light gold color. This is kind of almost more of an amber. So I have had this before. I did try 50 milliliter of this before, but yeah, I wanted to go ahead and do it on here as well because it is really interesting, being that I'm typically not a fan of Canadian whiskey. That's just my personal preference. I don't know, Canadian whiskeys for me have always been so light, so sweet, almost too smooth for me. I do kind of like, I like most of the whiskey I drink to have a good bite to it. So I do like the really kind of spicy, kind of hot, sort of peppery bourbons and whatnot, and especially the rye. So yeah, so with that, you do see that it gets kind of a kind of more amber color. It's much darker. It has that color from the oak barrels, I assume, coming through the charred oak barrels. So it does have a much more sort of kind of coppery amber appearance, and it's leaving some nice rimming around the glass, some nice legs. So yeah, let's go ahead and go for the aroma on this. Vanilla, oak, charcoal, maybe a bit of nutmeg, some of the malted barley for sure, which I'm not sure if Crown uses malted barley with their distilling. I would assume they would, but I could be wrong on that. Kind of a rich sort of, that sort of Crown Royal kind of smoothness is also there in the aroma. I mean, it smells a bit like Crown. It just smells like Crown. That's just definitely deeper and a bit more, earthy. Hints of brown sugar. It does smell like a very sweet whiskey for sure, but there's a good bit of that sort of oaky, charred sort of character to it. All right, let's go for the flavor on this. Maple, oak, vanilla, allspice, grain. Well, it's kind of like a leather kind of quality to it as well. I believe that's the charcoal, though. It's got a good, it has a good hit of charcoal flavor in this, which is a very smoky kind of charcoal flavor. It's really nice. And then again, like I had mentioned, with it smelling like Crown with just an earthy quality to it, it has sort of an earthy flavor to it as well. Kind of like some, a bit of a different type of uh, kind of oak flavor. It's different than it has flavor that is very similar to a bourbon, but it has a different unique quality to it. If it were a bourbon, it would have a much more different type of quality to it than bourbons that I've tried from Kentucky and everything, and so it has a much smokier sort of maltier kind of flavor as opposed to a sort of corn sweetness kind of flavor that I get from other bourbons. It is sweet, but it's not bourbon sweet, if that makes any sense. Like not corn sweet. But it's got a good, nice. It has a good mouthfeel to it. It's got a nice thick mouthfeel to it. Warm finish because of that 45% alcohol. Uh, it does have a somewhat of that the alcohol, like kind of rubbing alcohol flavor is on the finish, but so the finish isn't necessarily great or anything, but it's good. It's a really solid, kind of, I don't want to call it mimicry because that sounds mean spirited, but it has a good sort of. I feel like that's what they're kind of trying to do with this particular whiskey is sort of mimic a bourbon kind of flavor to it, and I would think it's a very successful attempt. It definitely succeeded there. But I really enjoy it. Like I said, I'm not really the biggest, not the biggest Canadian whiskey fan, but I did try just a couple days ago a little shooter of the regular Crown Royal because I never really got into Crown Royal. I started with Jack Daniels and stuff when I first started drinking whiskey. So I had a lot of friends that started with Canadian whiskeys, Crown Royal, Canadian Mist, all that kind of stuff. But I kind of started off on the other side of things. But did try a shooter of Crown Royal the other day, and I actually did enjoy it, and I enjoy this more so. So I do really definitely recommend Crown Royal's Black if you have not tried it. They also have a rye, which I think is newer. I could be wrong. I know this came out in 2010, but they also have a rye that I'm kind of looking forward to trying. But I would definitely get this in a pint, or if I wanted a bit more, a whole 750 milliliter of it. But I do enjoy it. So cheers on this one, guys. Definitely recommend you picking it up if you see it and you want to try a little something different from Crown. The Black is a good way to go. So until next time, guys, thank you for watching.